The woman at the dessert table isn't a stranger for long. She touches Imogen's arm before she says anything. The way you touch someone when you already know the sentence is going to cost you something. She says Julian's name first. Then she says hers, Wren. Like it used to mean something at this exact venue, with this exact string quartet playing a song Imogen doesn't recognize yet as the same one that will play at her own wedding, 11 months from tonight. You're with him now, Wren says. Not a question. Imogen says yes because it's true, and because she doesn't yet understand that yes is the first wrong answer she'll give tonight. He'll make you feel like the reason, Wren says, for all of it. Just watch for that. And then she's gone, back into a crowd of people who all seem to know something Imogen doesn't. And Imogen laughs it off the way you laugh off a stranger's warning at an open bar. Exes say things. Exes are bitter. She has heard the sentence, or some version of it, in every romantic comedy she's ever half-watched while folding laundry. She files it under drama and orders another drink and doesn't think about it again for 140 days. You need the number. Trust me. It matters later. It never announces itself as danger. That's the part almost nobody explains right. The part that makes stories like this so hard to hear without flinching. It arrives dressed exactly like the thing you've been hoping for. Attentiveness, memory, a person who actually listens. Nobody warns you that the same behaviors sit on both sides of the line, that devotion and control can wear the exact same face for months, sometimes years, before you can tell which one you actually married your life to. By the time the face changes, you've already built a home around it. And homes are not things people walk away from lightly, no matter how many warning signs get quietly explained away along the way. Here's what you should know about Julian, before I tell you what Imogen didn't. He remembers everything. Her coffee order after the second date, her mother's chemotherapy schedule after the fourth. He shows up to things. The industry mixer she mentioned once in passing, the boring work happy hour she almost didn't go to. And every time, it reads as devotion. He is, by every visible measure, the best boyfriend any of her friends have ever watched her have. Her friend Sasha says it first, at brunch. He's so present. And she means it as praise, because in the moment, it is praise. Presence looks like love before it starts to look like surveillance. Nobody can tell the difference yet. That's the whole design. At that same brunch, another friend, Odalis, jokes that Imogen should keep him. Good ones don't grow on trees, she says, laughing into her mimosa. And everyone at the table nods along, because from where they're sitting, nothing looks wrong. Nothing is supposed to look wrong yet. That's the whole point of a pattern like this one. It only ever looks wrong from 3 years further down the road, never from the table where everyone is still toasting to it. The dynamic doesn't announce itself. It arrives in small trades. Imogen used to see Sasha every Thursday, a standing thing, 5 years running, until Julian starts having a bad week every Thursday, and Imogen starts staying home, and somehow this becomes her idea. She'll tell you later she can't remember agreeing to it. Nobody asked her to give it up. She just did. The way you give up your window seat when the person next to you looks tired enough. And when something good happens to her, a promotion, a byline, a friend's engagement she's asked to be part of, something happens to Julian at the exact same time. A flare-up. A crisis only she can fix. Her win gets rerouted into his need before she's even finished celebrating it. She'll spend the next hour managing him instead of being happy. She doesn't notice the rhythm. You will. Because here's the part I need you holding on to. This isn't the first time. It isn't the second. There is a version of this exact week. The promotion, the flare-up, the rerouted joy, sitting in someone else's memory right now. Someone Imogen has never met. Someone who used to stand exactly where she's standing. The pattern is already 3 women deep by the time it reaches her. She just doesn't have the other 2 women's names yet. What Imogen has, instead, is one sentence from a woman at a wedding, tucked so far back in her memory that she'd swear, if you asked her, that she'd forgotten it completely. She hasn't. It surfaces at odd hours, cooking dinner, waiting for a bus, half asleep next to him, and each time it surfaces, it means something slightly different than it did the time before. Right now, it's just 5 words with nowhere to land. She'll find the landing spot. But it isn't tonight, and it isn't next month. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because before any of that, before the pattern has a name, before Wren's warning stops being background noise, there's a phone call Imogen is about to get from a woman she assumes is a wrong number. The call comes on a Tuesday, and Imogen almost doesn't pick it up because the number isn't saved and she's learned to let strangers go to voicemail. She picks it up anyway. Small decisions like this are the whole story if you look back far enough. "This is going to sound strange," the woman says. "My name's Odette. I got your number from Priya. We used to work together. I heard you're with Julian now, and I've been sitting with whether to call for 2 weeks, and I decided if I didn't do it today, I never would." Imogen sits down before she knows she's decided to sit down. Odette doesn't accuse anyone of anything. That's the detail that makes it land. She isn't angry. She isn't warning Imogen off him. She's just describing a life. 3 years ago, she says, almost 4 now. He remembered everything about her, too, in the beginning. Her sister's birthday, the name of her childhood dog. He showed up to her cousin's engagement party the week they started dating, and everyone said the same thing Sasha said at brunch. He's so present. And Odette believed it meant the same thing Imogen believes it means right now. By the end, Odette says, I hadn't spoken to my sister in 8 months, and I couldn't tell you the exact day that happened. That's the part nobody warns you about. There isn't a day. Imogen wants to ask the obvious question. Why didn't Wren tell her this much at the wedding, instead of 5 words and a hand on her arm? But she already knows the answer before she finishes forming it. You don't get the whole story from someone still bleeding from it. You get 5 words, because 5 words are all a person can afford to spend on a stranger. The whole story costs more, and Odette is only paying it now because enough time has passed that it doesn't cost her anything anymore. Here's where I need you to slow down with me, because this is the moment the pattern stops being a rumor and starts being a shape. 2 women, 2 timelines, 2 versions of the same disappearance dressed up as devotion at the start and loneliness at the end. Odette's career detail is the one that should stop Imogen cold. She got passed over for a director role the same month Julian needed her every single night for 3 weeks straight, a crisis that evaporated the day after the promotion went to someone else. Imogen has a review coming up next month. She doesn't connect it yet. You already have. Odette tells her one more thing before the call ends, almost as an afterthought, the way people mention the detail that actually mattered last. There was another woman before her, too. She never got a name, only a secondhand story from a coworker who dated Julian's college roommate. A story about a young woman who left a job she loved because Julian worried about her hours and never quite found her footing again after. Odette doesn't know if it's true. She's never been able to verify it. But she's carried it for 3 years anyway, because it fit the shape of everything she lived through so precisely that she stopped needing it verified. I'm not calling to ruin anything, Odette says before she hangs up. I just didn't want you finding out the way I did, alone, and 2 years too late to believe yourself. Imogen doesn't tell Julian about the call. That's the first secret she's ever kept from him, and she notices the shape of keeping it, how natural it feels, how much safer than saying it out loud and watching his face rearrange itself into hurt. She's already fluent in a language she doesn't remember learning. Protect him from things that might make him sad, even when the thing is a warning about him. If any of this feels familiar, the presence that curdles, the winds that get rerouted, the friend you used to see every week, that's exactly why I make these. Hit subscribe, because next time it might be your pattern I'm naming, and I want you here when I do. That night, Julian asks who called. Imogen says wrong number, and he holds her gaze half a second longer than a wrong number requires. And then he smiles and lets it go, and she tells herself the extra half second was nothing. It wasn't nothing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because before Imogen's review, before the promotion that's going to test every piece of what Odette just told her, there's a smaller moment first. The night Julian meets Sasha again, after 4 months of Thursdays that never happened, and says one sentence that will take Imogen another full year to translate correctly. Sasha comes back into the picture on a Wednesday, uninvited by Julian and unannounced by Imogen, because Imogen finally just texts her, "I miss you, come over," without asking anyone's permission first. It's a small rebellion. She doesn't call it that. She calls it dinner. Julian is home when Sasha arrives, which wasn't the plan. And for a moment, Imogen watches 2 versions of him exist in the same doorway. The one who hugs Sasha like an old friend, and the one underneath, recalculating. They talk for an hour. It's easy, the way it used to be easy. And Imogen feels something in her chest unclench that she didn't know was clenched. Then Julian says it. Light. Almost a joke. "I'm glad you two are close again," he says. "Sasha always did bring out the version of you I worry about." Sasha laughs, because it sounds like nothing. Imogen laughs too, because in the room, in the moment, with wine on the table, it sounds like nothing. It is not nothing. The version of you I worry about is not a compliment wearing a joke's clothes. It's a label, applied so gently that Imogen won't feel the edges of it for another year. He didn't say Sasha was a bad influence. He said Imogen, around Sasha, becomes a person that requires worry. He has just recast her own personality as a symptom, and he did it so warmly that she thanked him for caring. I want you to sit with that sentence for one more second, because it's doing 4 jobs at once. Flattering him as the vigilant one, framing Imogen's independence as instability, keeping Sasha permanently on probation, and requiring absolutely no response, no confrontation, nothing Imogen could ever point to later and call an argument. That is not an accident. That is the most efficient sentence in this entire story, and he delivered it between passing the bread and refilling a glass. 2 weeks later, her review happens exactly the way Odette said it would. Not in plot, but in shape. Imogen gets the promotion. She calls Julian first, the way she always does, breathless, and there's a silence on the line that lasts 1 second too long before he says the right words in the wrong order. "That's great. Wow. I have some news too, actually. Can we talk tonight?" His news, delivered over dinner she doesn't get to properly enjoy, is a health scare that turns out, over the following days, to be nothing. A scare, not a diagnosis. A scare that requires her full attention for exactly as long as her promotion news would have otherwise taken up the room. She spends the celebratory dinner she planned for herself instead managing his fear. She doesn't notice this the night it happens. I need you to notice it, because this is the pattern completing its 3rd rotation in front of you, in real time, dressed as a coincidence. Here's what I want to know from you, and I mean actually tell me in the comments. At what point in this story would you have caught it? Was it the wedding? The phone call from Odette? Or would it have taken a second scare, timed a little too well, before you started counting? Because Imogen isn't there yet. She loves him. That's the part people skip when they tell stories like this. Nobody stays for the manipulation. They stay for the man who remembers your coffee order and shows up early and cried once, genuinely, at her sister's wedding toast. That man is real. He exists in the same body as the sentence about Sasha, in the same voice as the perfectly timed health scare. Both of him are true. That's what makes this so hard to walk out of, and so hard to explain to anyone standing outside it. What Imogen doesn't know yet, what you already suspect, is that Odette wasn't the last woman to get a version of this story. There's one more. And unlike Ren, unlike Odette, this one isn't going to wait for Imogen to find her. She's going to find Imogen first, at the worst possible time, holding something Imogen can't laugh off as a coincidence. Her name is Greta, and she doesn't call first. She's standing outside Imogen's building on a Saturday morning, holding a coffee she clearly bought as a prop, something to hold on to so her hands have a job. She's younger than Imogen expected, 24, maybe 25, and she's shaking slightly in a way that has nothing to do with the cold.
I know this is insane, Greta says.
I got your address from an old lease document. We're both listed on Julian's insurance policy, somehow. I don't even know how that happened. I needed to see your face before I said this. Imogen doesn't invite her up. They sit on the front steps instead. Two women who have never met, both of them holding cups of something neither one is drinking. Greta isn't an ex. That's the detail that changes the shape of everything. Greta is current, or was until 4 days ago, when she found out Julian had been seeing her and Imogen at the same time for the last 5 months, moving between 2 apartments, 2 sets of remembered coffee orders, 2 versions of the same devoted attention split cleanly enough that neither woman noticed the seams. Imogen doesn't cry. That surprises her more than the news does. She sits very still instead, doing math she doesn't want to be doing. Thursdays that got canceled, work trips that ran long, a phone that started needing a passcode around the same time Greta says this started. Every unexplained gap in the last 5 months rearranges itself into a shape she can suddenly see whole. He told me you two were basically over, Greta says. That you'd been distant for a year. That he was staying out of guilt about your family stuff. Imogen's family is fine. Imogen's family has never been the subject of a single guilty conversation in this relationship. That's the moment the last piece locks into place. Not the affair itself, brutal as it is, but the specific, custom-built lie constructed for an audience of one, engineered from nothing, because a man who remembers everything about you can also invent anything about you to someone else. I need you to understand what you're looking at here, because it's easy to file this under cheating and move on, and that would be missing the actual architecture. Ren got 5 words and a lifetime of silence. Odette got isolation dressed as intimacy, and a career quietly dismantled on schedule. Greta is getting erased in real time, turned into a footnote in a story where Imogen is cast as the wounded, patient, long-suffering partner, a role Julian assigned her without asking, the same way he assigned Sasha the role of bad influence over bread and wine. He is not improvising. He has been running the same 4 or 5 moves for years on a rotating cast, and every single one of them believed, for a while, that they were the exception. Greta tells her the rest of it slowly, like she's setting down something heavy she's been carrying since Tuesday. The apartment on the east side that Imogen has never heard of. The version of Julian who called her the calm one, the way he used to call Imogen something else entirely in year 1. The way he told Greta, almost verbatim, that his last relationship had gone cold, that he was staying out of guilt, that he just needed a little more time to do right by everyone. 2 women, 1 script, performed twice in the same city, without either audience knowing the other existed. Greta starts crying before Imogen does. "I'm not trying to blow up your life," she says. "I just couldn't be the only one who didn't know." And there it is, the sentence underneath every sentence in this whole story. I didn't want to be the only one who didn't know. Wren didn't say it at the wedding, but it's what she meant. Odette didn't say it on the phone, but it's why she called. Every woman in this pattern has been trying, in her own limited, frightened way, to make sure the next one gets there faster than she did. Imogen goes back inside alone. She doesn't call Julian. She doesn't text him. She sits at her kitchen table with her coat still on and does something she hasn't done since the wedding. She takes Wren's 5 words out of storage, turns them over, and finally reads them the way they were meant to be read. He'll make you feel like the reason. Not the reason he loves her, the reason for whatever goes wrong. The excuse that arrives right on schedule every time he needs one. She's not confronting him tonight. She's not leaving tonight either. What she's doing tonight is something quieter and, in its way, more dangerous to him than either of those things. She's starting to quietly add it all up in her head. Every convenient crisis, every rerouted celebration, every sentence that sounded like love and did something else instead. He doesn't know that yet. He's about to walk through the door in 11 minutes, humming, holding flowers for absolutely no occasion. And for the first time in this entire story, that's not going to work on her the way it used to. He notices something's wrong within 30 seconds, because noticing is the one skill he's never faked. "You're quiet," Julian says, setting the flowers down on the counter, like a man setting down something he doesn't yet know he'll have to explain. "What happened?" Imogen tells him Greta came by. She watches his face for the version of him that's about to construct something, and for the first time, she sees the machinery before it finishes running. There's a half-second flicker, a recalibration, and then grief arrives on his features almost too well-fitted, like a coat he already had hanging by the door. "I can explain that," he says. He does explain it, at length. Greta, he says, is unstable, has been for months, latched onto him during a low point, invented an entire relationship in her head that barely existed in reality, a handful of dinners blown into something dramatic because she needs a villain more than she needs the truth. It's fluent, it's fast, it's the same shape as Sasha brings out the version of you I worry about, scaled up to survive an actual accusation. And here's what makes this moment different from every one before it. Imogen doesn't nod along this time. She doesn't feel the familiar pull to manage his discomfort before her own. She just watches him work, the way you'd watch a magician you've finally seen from backstage. And something close to pity moves through her before the anger does. "You did this with Odette too," she says. Quiet, not a question. That name lands on him like weather. He doesn't know how she has it, doesn't know how long she's had it, and for one unguarded second, the first honest second he's given her in the entire relationship, she watches him try to figure out how much he needs to admit versus how much he can still talk his way around. That calculation, right there, is the whole relationship in miniature. Not love recalculating, damage control recalculating. He grows careless after that, the way people do once they sense the story is already slipping out of their hands. He stops being precise. He says Odette was years ago, that's not even relevant, which confirms the name without him meaning to. He says Wren has always hated him for no reason, which confirms Wren said something worth hating him for. Every denial he reaches for accidentally corroborates the last woman he's denying. So all of them, Imogen says, not just Greta, not a mistake, all of them. He doesn't answer that directly. He goes for the sentence he saved for exactly this moment, the one built for maximum damage with minimum effort. "I can't believe you'd throw away everything we have over some jealous women who can't move on." Jealous women who can't move on. 4 women, 4 different cities, 4 different years, and somehow all of them are the unstable ones, and he's the only constant across every single account. Imogen hears it land, hears how many times it's probably worked before, on her, on Odette, on whoever came before Ren. And for the first time, she recognizes it not as an insult aimed at other women, but as a preview. This is the sentence he's rehearsing to use about her, later, to the next one. She doesn't cry. She doesn't raise her voice. She picks up her coat and says the only thing that matters in this whole conversation. I'm not staying to find out what version of me you tell her. He tries 3 more angles before she's at the door. Apology, anger, a flash of the old warmth that used to work on her like a reset button. None of it moves her, because she isn't listening to what he's saying anymore. She's listening to the pattern underneath it, the one Ren handed her in 5 words at a wedding 2 years ago, finally translated in full. What she doesn't know yet, walking down her own hallway, in her own coat, for what's about to become the last time she does this in this apartment as his, is that Greta is already typing a message to a 4th woman none of them have met yet. The rotation doesn't stop just because Imogen steps out of it, but someone, for the first time, just made it 1 name shorter. Imogen doesn't go far. 3 blocks, into a diner that's open all night for exactly this kind of exit. And she sits in a booth with her coat still zipped and orders coffee she doesn't drink either. She takes out her phone and looks at Greta's number for a long time before she calls it. I'm not calling to compare notes, Imogen says, when Greta picks up. I'm calling because somebody should have called me sooner, and nobody did until you. So, thank you. And I'm sorry you're the one who had to be brave enough to knock on a stranger's door.
Greta cries again, but it sounds different this time. Lighter.
Like the first cry that isn't just grief, it's relief. The specific relief of being believed by the one person who had every reason not to believe her. They don't become friends exactly. They become something else. 2 women who share a phone number in case a 3rd one ever needs it. That's not a small thing. That's the entire pattern rerouted. For years it ran on silence, on women protecting a man's feelings instead of each other. Tonight, for the first time, it runs the other way. Julian calls 14 times before midnight. Imogen doesn't answer once. Somewhere around call 11, she realizes the silence doesn't feel like restraint anymore. It feels like the first thing in 2 years that's entirely hers. Here's what I keep coming back to with this one. Ren spent 5 words on a stranger at a wedding because that's all she could afford. Odette spent a phone call because enough time had passed to make it survivable. Greta spent a Saturday morning shaking on a stoop because she couldn't wait for time to make it easier. Every single one of them gave Imogen a piece of a story none of them had the whole of. And Imogen is the one who finally had enough pieces to see the shape. That's not luck. That's what happens when women stop treating each other like competition for a man who was never actually worth the contest. I think about the version of Imogen who almost didn't answer that phone on a Tuesday afternoon. The version who could have deleted the unknown number, gone on with her evening, never met Odette's voice at all. Most of the women in patterns like this one don't get a Ren at a wedding, or an Odette willing to spend a phone call on a stranger, or a Greta brave enough to show up shaking on a stoop. Most of them just get the years. Imogen got the years too, but she also got 3 women who refused to let the years be the only thing she walked away with. And that is not something you can manufacture. That's just what happens when somebody, somewhere, finally decides silence has cost enough people enough already. If you've ever been the one everyone called so present, and only later understood the word for what it actually was, control, wearing a nice coat, I want you to hear this clearly, because it's the only thing that matters out of everything I just told you. You are not too much. They were just not enough. Around here, we don't just survive it, we understand it.
And if you needed tonight's story, you're going to need the next one too. Because next time, I'm telling you about the version of this man who never gets caught. No Ren, no Odette, no Greta showing up on a stoop. Just a woman who spent 6 years thinking she was the problem because nobody ever knocked on her door to tell her otherwise. That one's coming, and it's going to sit with you longer than this one did. The firelight is always on. I'll see you next time.